Firstly, I would like to thank everyone who has supported myself and this channel since it started. I try to answer every message and reply to comments, but I'm getting more and more of them, so if I didn't reply to your message or comment, please don't think I'm being rude. I genuinely appreciate your support. One thing I have noticed about the comments and messages I receive is more and more people are asking what they should do, or what direction the movement should take in order to win. And let's face it, that's all that matters, that we win. It's no good just making YouTube videos or sharing memes on Facebook and Twitter. We have to have a viable route to victory. Now, that's not to throw shade on YouTubers or content creators. I've said repeatedly that building an alternative media is an important part of what we need to do in order to achieve victory. Over the past few weeks, I've had the pleasure of working with numerous other content creators. I've appeared alongside Tara McCarthy on her excellent YouTube channel. I appeared on Red Ice TV with Henrik, and on National Bugle Radio with Patrick Slattery. And of course, I appeared on the David Duke Show on Rents Radio, as I do every Friday. All of these appearances are listed on my channel, and if you get the time, please have a listen and support these people and their work. This alternative media has played a key role in breaking the vice-like grip of the mainstream media. For the first time since the advent of television and the growth of the mass media, more people are watching and listening to podcasts like this than are watching terrestrial television. Viewing figures for YouTube documentaries and shows now regularly exceed actual television viewing figures, and that is great news. This has allowed those within our movement to take our message of truth directly to the people on a greater scale than ever before, and it has allowed us to respond instantly to major incidents like the recent terror attacks. But more so, it has allowed us to actually expose the mainstream media. On my recent appearances on the David Duke Show and on Red Ice TV, I spoke of the way CNN and other media outlets had stage-managed groups of so-called moderate Muslims to make it look like there was a spontaneous protest against terrorism by the Muslim community. In fact, the whole event was carefully choreographed and put together to fool the public, and the alternative media has given us the power to expose these things. At one time, that fake news would have been broadcast by the mainstream media and gone unchallenged. Not anymore. Now, the expose of that scene has been seen by millions, and no doubt discussed and disseminated by millions more. We have built something that is necessary, and that has been so powerful in not only spreading our message, but in connecting us to one another. But despite my high praise for the alternative media and those using social networks to spread our message, that alone is not going to win us power. We need to go further, and we need to build a viable movement for change. One that can take power away from these traitor politicians and return it to people who have our nation's and our people's best interests at heart. Because for all the great media that we can produce, if we don't have a way to get rid of those people who flood our country with immigrants, if we can't remove those brainwashing our children in schools, and if we can't wrestle power from those who are the architects of multiculturalism, then all the YouTube videos in the world won't help. We will die out, and our homelands will be handed away on a plate to those from the Third World and the Middle East. And the most likely outcome of that is that Britain and Europe will become Islamic republics. So what do we need to do? Well, at the weekend there was a large march in Manchester led by Tommy Robinson, and it was very well attended. From the pictures, it looked as if there were well over 2,000 people there. And believe me, what I am about to say is not an attack on the many good people who attended the event. And it certainly isn't an attack on Tommy Robinson, who was very smartly presented and gave an excellent speech. Also, as an aside to this, Tommy put up a superb video to which I have placed a link in the description below, where he exposed how the police actively work with Antifa and the left to ensure the maximum amount of disruption possible at these demos. Make no mistake, The state are complicit in attempting to ensure that all these marches and demos end in violence, and they work hand in hand with the so-called revolutionaries on the left to achieve this. So whilst I commend Tommy Robinson and the hundreds of good people who attended the march in Manchester last weekend, sadly, it was yet again spoiled, not just by the left and the police, but by people who are supposedly on our side, who behaved in a manner that was not only disrespectful to Tommy Robinson and the hundreds who turned out for a peaceful march, but their behaviour was also disrespectful to the victims of Islamic terrorism that the march took place to honour and remember. I saw images of people drinking, putting their middle fingers up at the left and screaming aggressively. All of these images are exactly what we don't need. Firstly, no one should be bringing crates of lager to these events. No one should be on these marches, walking down the streets with cans of beer in their hands. This march was to remember the little girls murdered at a concert. It wasn't a football match, and getting drunk and rowdy certainly wasn't a fitting memorial to those victims. Then, there was a picture of a man holding up a severed pig's head. Now, I don't know this individual, and I can't imagine what he was thinking. But whatever thought process led him to believe that such an action was both acceptable and a good way to honour the victims of terrorism was flawed, to say the very least. These actions led to probably some of the most embarrassing and repulsive images of a nationalist demo that I've ever seen, and culminated with a man actually taking a bite out of the pig's head, much to the pleasure of the press who were present. Now again, let me underline what I have said earlier. I am not attacking the good people on that march, and I am certainly not attacking Tommy Robinson or those who organised the event and tried to get people off their bottoms and out doing something. But getting people out and doing something is all well and good, but it must be conducive to building a healthy and righteous movement, and crucially, it must also actually be effective at gaining power. And unfortunately, that march, whilst filled with hundreds of decent people who were well-intentioned and willing to do something, ended up giving our enemies dozens of pictures that portrayed the event as a drunken and violent affair. And worse still, that whole severed pig's head, boy, was that an own goal of epic proportions. And it will be used time and time again by the press to malign our message. Now, before anyone says the left provoked or started any of the violent outbursts, I am well aware that is the case, and I understand the frustration and anger felt by patriots on marches when they are being heckled and abused and taunted by the left. However, reacting to those taunts by throwing cans, screaming obscenities and throwing up middle fingers is what the left want, because their friends in the media then have all the ammunition they need to make us look like the bad guys. Finally, on the subject of marches, and this is the crucial point, I honestly don't believe they change anything. This country has seen huge marches in our capital. We saw over 400,000 members of the Countryside Alliance march through London in 2002 to protest against the proposed hunt ban. Did that change anything? No. The Blair government still banned hunting. We saw over 1 million people march through London in 2003 against the war in Iraq. Did that stop the war? No. The Blair government still took us to war. Both of those marches numbered far in excess of any march that has ever been organised by nationalists, and neither achieved anything. These marches are a great way for people to vent their frustration, but ultimately, once everyone has gone home, any positive energy built up at such an event is gone. It's lost. These events do not leave a lasting impact and have never influenced government policy making. We need to engage in activities that leave a lasting impression and that actually build something of worth that can allow us to wrestle power from the internationalists and the political elite. So what do I propose? Well, quite simply, we must take our message directly to the people. We must bypass the police, bypass the left, Ditch the lager and get serious. And I believe the only way forward is through making a serious effort to rebuild what we have lost. And that means community politics. It means going out, leafleting, speaking to people, and engaging with the public in a non-confrontational manner. And this may put some of our people off from actually doing anything, because it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be lager and a sing-song. It's going to be hard work. It's going to be dressing smartly. It's going to be projecting the correct image. And it's going to be speaking to people on the streets, on housing estates and in town centres. It's going to be working to identify people who agree with us and building a genuine movement for change. Now, before anyone starts talking about elections and the merits or drawbacks of the electoral road, I am not for 1 minute suggesting that we take part in general elections or stand in parliamentary seats, at least not for the foreseeable future. These elections tend to work on a two-party basis, and the limits for spending mean that the establishment parties can easily outspend any nationalist party or group. What I am talking about is using local council elections and by-elections as campaigning tools. I'm not even necessarily talking about winning those seats, at least not immediately. I am talking about using the electoral process on a local level to spread our message and engage with communities. I'm talking about working on community politics and local issues to help people and draw people together around our cause. I want nationalists to be able to emerge as community leaders, people who are seen as trusted individuals and pillars of their community. You see, if we are ever going to stand a chance of winning, as stated earlier, we must have a plan as to how we are going to remove the politicians and replace them with nationalists, people who have the interests of our people and our homeland at heart. And the only way to do that is politics. But there is another aspect to this, and that is reversing the damage that has been done to our communities. One of the reasons Indigenous Europeans have been losing ground to immigrants is because we have lost our sense of community. We are no longer a cohesive group. We no longer think of the good of our neighbours. However, those who have come to our lands, the immigrants, are cohesive. They value the idea of a strong and cohesive community. And that is why they have been so successful in importing their own culture, traditions, and ways of life, and have slowly managed to completely take over whole areas, sometimes transforming entire towns and cities. We need to rebuild our shattered communities, but once they are rebuilt, we need to be in a position from which we can lead those communities in the right direction. And the only way to do all of this is to engage in community politics, which will be hard work and will take time. But it's something we must do. But despite it being hard work and taking time, it is a good use of our time. Just imagine a group of 200 nationalists, all gathered together in a town centre, cordoned off by police and with a noisy left-wing counter-demonstration next to them. Then imagine those 200 people split up into 50 separate groups of 4 people, all out with tabletop stalls in small towns, or leafleting estates, or knocking on doors and talking to people. One of those 2 events will end up in negative press, and few members of the public, if any, will actually be reached. The other of those 2 approaches would reach thousands and thousands and would recruit new people to our cause without any trouble or police or any left-wing intervention. What's more, the community-minded approach would start to build dozens of small support bases for our cause all over the UK, a network of patriots who could act as one and ultimately, if managed correctly, could grow in size and potentially begin to seize power from the politicians who have betrayed us. We need a sensible approach. We need an approach that can win power, not one that leads us down a road of confrontation and arrests and fights with the left. We need to rebuild our communities, and we need to lead those communities. I'm not saying this will be quick or easy. In fact, I'm saying this will be hard work and it will take time. But if you genuinely believe your people and your nation are worth saving, then that hard work is surely a sacrifice worth making. Because we can march around in circles and fight the Reds all day, but if we don't have a path to power, all that will just be a political sideshow as the establishment continue their genocidal policies of mass immigration and multiculturalism. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help spread the message by liking and sharing it on social networks. If you want to hear more from me, please hit the subscribe button as new videos are posted every week. You can also read my book, The Fall of Western Man. It's available as a free ebook and in both hardback and paperback, and all the links are in the description below. Finally, if you want to join in the discussion with me, please feel free to add me on Facebook, and you can now follow me on Twitter as well. Everyone's welcome.